All rise for the jury. All right, please be seated. Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict. Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derrick Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019. Members of the jury, I'm now going to ask you individually if these are your true and correct verdicts. Please respond yes or no. Juror number 2, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 19, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 27, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 44, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 52, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 55, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 79, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 85, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 89, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 91, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 92, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes.
Members of the jury, I find that the verdicts as read reflect the will of the jury and will be filed accordingly. I have to thank you on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota.
Trey Holiday.
Jury service.
Big O.
What I do now is to follow
Well,
the deputy back into your
there it
room.
is. 10 hours of let me get this set up here. We'll jump into it. 10 hours of a discussion, and man, I mean, this is where it's at. We've got guilty on all 3 charges.
Yeah, guilty on all 3 charges. Again, as you heard the reporters saying there right before they read the verdict, that, you know, the time spent in deliberation made it clear that there was a unanimous vote here. And honestly, I mean, really, I don't know about you, but immediately I'm already just feeling a sigh of relief, a weight off my back, a little bit of that knee pressure off my neck, a little bit, but it's a little bit off. You know what I'm saying? All I can say is abso-freaking-lutely. I just have to go there, man. I'm over here trying to contain my energy, brother.
Right. You know, I think most people felt that with the verdict coming so fast in 10 hours, I think it was 4 hours yesterday, 6 hours today, or vice versa, that they came to a decision very quick on this. And that quick decision meant that people agreed quickly, which most likely meant a guilty verdict. I think a lot of people, most people were kind of thinking like, okay, is it going to be a guilty, or is it going to be guilty on all 3, or is it going to be a lesser charge or something like that? But man, guilty on all 3 charges, Trey Holiday.
all three charges. Oh, and this is reporters calling me already because it's going down. I mean, at this point, man, you know, people are wanting to hear from folks in community. I'm just elated right now. Oh, I'll tell you this much, that, you know, for me, this is a real win for us as a nation, my friend. Like, we have been talking about this. The whole nation, the whole world was watching. It was time for America to get it right. And you know what? Kudos to these jurors, because they took it all in and they came together and they got it right on this one. Oh.
Right, and we're waiting for Marcus Harrison Green from the South Seattle Emeralds, going to be joining us here in a minute as well. But what do you think, though, Trey Holiday? This is, when we talk about the issue here with policing and Black people in America, everybody talks about it being a systemic issue, a much larger than one officer issue. What do you think this verdict is really going to relate to in the bigger picture of things? I mean, we see here in Washington State, I actually saw a news story. They're talking about Washington State's trying to take the lead. We see a lot of legislation down there. And I guess, for no better term, reimagining policing. Do you think this guilty verdict here on all three charges, as well as the total number of police that really came in and testified? You had the chief of police, you had police experts, you had the sergeant there, you had the training academy. All of these officers came out there and testified for the prosecution. Do you think that these three guilty verdicts here is going to change anything systemically?
I think it's a start. And that's the point. You know, as we've been talking, you and I, we know that, you know, we do have to take it case by case, piece by piece. Even when we're talking about developing in the Central District, right? It's building by building. All of this stuff is kind of brick by brick. And this is a brick in the right place at the right time. I think it's definitely needed to talk about the systemic changes that are necessary. And this right here just makes me feel like people are listening to that collective voice that was out there protesting all over the world for George Floyd and for others that have suffered their deaths at the hands of police. This right here is really allowing us to understand how systemic it's been, and that we really do need to make some solid change in order to really change the trajectory of this country, because we've been going down a real divided route. You know, this racism and racial practice and how big it's gotten, how politicized things have gone. This is what we needed. We needed people to understand and utilize that collective voice. And I'm thankful that people have been coming out. I'm thankful that even Joe Biden, while they were sequestered, he said the evidence is overwhelming. And he was right on this one. I think that we definitely needed this to showcase that America can be better when we all also bring all of these diverse voices together that really are talking about what you always say all the time. Man, be about your humanity. Show your empathy. It's not just about what you thought you knew. Let's open up our minds. And what I'm always saying, man, be a part of the solution. I think this is a step in the right direction, period, point blank.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. You know, I think that all of us collectively are optimistic that we see the changes that need to occur. It's undeniable at this point. It's unfortunate that it's taken the murder of George Floyd, definitely 3 guilty verdicts, the murder of George Floyd, and all these other things for people to really kind of get it. Something that Black people have been living with a very long time here in this country, and that's the relationship between our community and police. And you know, hopefully this is a step forward as far as policy, as far as the way that we think about policing here in America. And it kind of says a lot that the whole country, the whole world was on pins and needles. And I think that they had good cause to be, because we've seen many times that, you know, justice hasn't always prevailed on behalf of our community.
I know we've been talking about that. The historical context here is huge. And again, you know, we just last week, we showcased a number of cases that really were spot on about how this racial disparity, racial ideas play out when in different multiple police cases, right? And you're absolutely right that we have to think about the history here. And when we use a Sankofa method in community all the times, and Black communities all over the world, they look back to look forward. And that really just means learning from our history so that we can make better choices. And that's what excites me here, is because it feels like this is a better choice, right? That there was no question, that they didn't just say, okay, only one charge is going to be guilty, the other ones will let him go. No, they understood the multitude of this moment right here. And I think they made the right decision.
Yeah, it's hard, even though there was a lot of people that of a different ideology, perhaps, that were defensive of Chauvin, and which was wild in itself. I think that, the prosecutor said, believe your eyes on this one.
Yeah.
Believe your eyes. And I remember, if we go back almost 1 year, when you and I on the morning update show, and we first saw that clip, and I was like, we put it in the morning update show. I was like, Trey, we can't play this whole thing. I think we played like just maybe like 20 or 30 seconds of it. And it was actually the portion where he was screaming for his mom, where he was mama. And, throughout the Seattle protests, it's hot in here, y'all. Throughout the Seattle protests, even before, going into the Seattle protests, throughout the protests, and even right now, I say that the murder of George Floyd was a crime against humanity. And I remember I would get some comments. They're like, what, you mean the whole humanity? Like it was a crime against all of humanity? And yes, in the sense that our humanity collectively was wounded.
Yeah.
The people who might have never, it was almost goes back to when I was a kid with Rodney King. Nobody ever believed that the police beat people up. You'd be like, man, the police beat me up. They'd be like, yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? No one outside of community would never believe that until the Rodney King tape came out. And it was like, oh, word? The police really be doing that? And we see exactly 30 years later that it took this George Floyd, and George Floyd, the tape of George Floyd just hit America and the world way different. And remember, there was the shooting down in South Carolina where a guy was running away and the cop shot him in the back and didn't realize there was a video and lied, tried to say that, the guy attacked him and everything else. People were horrified by that, but it was something about that 8 minutes and 46 seconds or that 9 minutes and 29 seconds that struck at a collective humanity across our country and around the world.
Yeah, period, point blank. And when we think about, Rodney King, it goes back to that because you had grainy video at the time. People were giving it all kinds of disclaimers about how real it was. And, oh, well, what did he do to get beat down like that? Clearly he did something and we missed that part of the video. There was so much out there. But see, this right here was clear as day. Clearly, our technology has evolved over time, and there was so many different people out there. To have all those people really come onto the stand talking about how they were experiencing that moment right there as George Floyd lost his life was huge. It was huge for the prosecution to do that. It was huge for them to have the multitude of officers, as you described earlier, to be on the stand and to be talking about how this is not how we do this. This is not protocol. I don't know where this came from. It looks like it was some type of on the spot action. There was so much here, that really pushed it into this direction. I think many people, and as we've seen, Minneapolis has a bunch of security forces out there, police, National Guard, really because they were like, look, if after all of that, it comes back with anything less really than a guilty verdict on all counts, it's probably going to be chaos in the streets. And I bet you right now it's a bunch of celebration happening in the streets. We talked about this, man. We got to celebrate every single win. And it's not just about like this one case is now going to change the hearts of Americans that have thought, oh man, Derrick Chauvin was innocent and, he shouldn't be on trial. You know what? At the end of the day, we understand that kind of ideology still permeates our existence in this country and beyond. And it's very particular here because of the multitude of police force that we have as a measure of, security and a measure of protection. Now we really have to start reimagining policing. This is what folks on the ground were talking about. And I cannot tell you how excited I am that, you know what, George Floyd, your family, you guys deserve all the love right now because you lost a loved one. But one thing that I gotta say that is so poignant to right now is that him losing his life in that regard really helped to shake up our nation in a way that has not been shook before. And it's something that is really a testament to his life, to the legacy that he's really going to embark on this country. I believe in optimism, just as you do, my friend. And I'm telling you right now, I'm really feeling elated because ultimately we needed this verdict. We needed it at this moment, at this time, period, point blank.
All right, we have Marcus Harrison Green back there in the green room. Nikki, if you could bring in Marcus. Marcus.
Hey, how y'all doing today? How y'all doing in this moment?
One of these studio lights.
Man, bro, I mean, sorry, the sun is shining, bro. It's just the halo is coming in, I guess. I don't know. But
Marcus, man, give us your thoughts.
Man, I gotta say, there's a part of me that feels, less excited and more relieved. I was, talking to my mom just right before I popped on here, and we were talking about how, I mean, it almost felt like the end of that movie Quiz Show. And for those who don't know, at the end of the film, this person had been lying, to this jury this entire time, just lying the entire time. And finally, the person tells the truth, and he says. And you have all these people who are like, oh, thank you so much that you finally told the truth. You finally did the right thing. And finally, there's one person who said, I can't join my colleagues in praising you for doing the right thing. You simply just did what you were supposed to do. And all that happened here was that this was supposed to have been done, right? I mean, the fact that you had to have the president of the United States say that he was praying for the right verdict, and so many other folks who were being interviewed, Black folks being interviewed, leading up, to this verdict, saying that if history was any indication, they didn't expect anything to happen, to this man. I mean, it just goes to show you, right, that the fact that we were almost already trained, right, to expect something other than what actually happened, meaning that justice was served, that says a lot.
Right. And Marcus, Triana and I were speaking earlier here about what do we think the systemic outcome will be in this, in Chauvin being found guilty here on all three charges. Do you think that this momentum around systemic changes in policing in America is going to gain more momentum, or is this just a one-off?
To be honest with you, man, I mean, there's a part of me who is very cynical, who says this is just going to be a one-off. Just the fact that you had so many police officers in his department, come out against him, it seemed, I read that as this man is the sacrificial lamb, right? Because there's been so many times where police do not want to cross what they call the thin blue line, meaning testifying against an officer. The fact, though, that, I mean, it came a point where that video, 9.5 minutes, I mean, it was just so horrendous and grotesque that, it was overwhelming, right? That there was no way that they could save this man. And so it almost felt like Chauvin in some ways, I'm talking about the point of view of the police and law enforcement, was almost like the man was a sacrificial lamb, and you can already hear the narrative now where this one person was a bad apple versus this is a systemic issue. I mean, keep in mind that since the Chauvin trial started on March 29th, earlier before that, but earlier in March, that 64 people have been killed at the hands of police in this country, and over half of them have been people of color, right? I mean, this trial hasn't stopped anything, right? We just had a 13-year-old over in Chicago, had his hands up and was killed. Deontay Wright, a black man over in Minnesota, was also killed during the trial. So, I mean, it's just very hard to believe that this is going to be a watershed moment. I'm of course hopeful and optimistic. That being said, I'm also pragmatic and realistic.
Right. And Marcus, you have the Emerald, the South Seattle Emerald, has been covering the Seattle protests from day one.
Same with you all. You know, we've been joined at the hip and doing that. You know,
Sure.
we hit it by sea, you all hit it by air, or however you want to put it, whatever.
There we
Anyway.
go.
There it is. What do you think that this verdict means here in Seattle? One, for the protest movement, but two, also down in City Hall and maybe even the state capitol.
I think in terms of, you know, taking the protest movement, I think that it means that people continue to put their foot on the gas. They look at it as Trey was saying earlier, as a victory, you know, and a celebration of that, and meaning that, hey, we've been able to drag, you know, the society a couple inches forward, and we got to continue to drag it, you know, farther to advance to the place that we really want to go. I think in terms of city leadership, you know, current and future, I think this is sort of a sign to them that, hey, I mean, we this provides some cloud cover that we can maybe be a little bit more aggressive when it comes, even more aggressive, I should say, when it comes to police reform and, you know, potential reconfiguration, you know, of police department.
All right, I know we got to let you go, Marcus. Busy man.
Man, I gotta start writing, bro. I gotta say this though. You look like Elder, you know, Salisbury today. You got the suit up. You were sweating. I was like, man, do I need the donation bucket out? I mean, brother, am I giving ties today? You know, I'm part of the $5 army, man. Do I need to give some more to you? Is what I'm saying.
You see, you heard it here. This man owns the whole publication. He's part of the $5 army. Marcus Harrison Green, South Seattle Emerald, man. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey, much love to both you, Bo and Trey. Talk to y'all soon.
All right, much love. Wow.
Yeah, Trey.
Great points there. I mean, honestly, you know, as we've been saying, you know, there's only so much we can say here, but I think that all of us are really spot on when we talk about really seeing how this plays out over time. That's going to be the real test of this, though.
Yeah. And like I said, we'll see. I think that for me, this moment, people who watch the Morning Update show, the original intro for the Morning Update show, it was some funky music and this and that, and the intro and the outro. And the day that we saw this was May 29th. And like, we switched up the whole show.
Yeah.
It was like, and that's why we end the Morning Update show would lift every voice and sing. Like, we were so impacted. We were so impacted, man. And like, now that like this trial is over with, it's, you know, we talk about it was a struggle to be out there, and it's still a struggle. And, you know, continuously try I'll be honest with the viewers, to be out there, like the anger and the rage that I felt about this crime against humanity, the murder of George Floyd, and you sit out there and then go through all that police violence and everything else on peaceful protests. I mean, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. And to sit there and even come in here every single day, people don't understand. The police beat me and my brother's ass when I was 15 years old on the East Precinct. Like, I know what this is. I know what this is. I sat there on the East Precinct, 15 years old. I wear glasses. It broke my glasses. I'm like, yo, getting smacked on. I'm like, you see this? Police laughing at me like, you ain't got your glasses on. I know what it is. And I know what it is as well, that if you give in to the rage, and if you give into it, you know what I'm saying? It's been a tough year, you know what I'm saying, for everybody. And it's definitely been a tough year trying to report on this, knowing down deep, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, didn't take this trial without a shadow of a doubt. I was a crime against humanity. And we were saying the other day on the Morning Update show, Trey, it was Horace Mann who said, you should be ashamed to die without scoring some victories for humanity. And hopefully today is a victory for humanity. You know, it's a lot of people who was just wounded and impacted, and they still are. by what we saw and the compounded violence that we've seen before then and since then.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I agree 100%. And this is exactly why, the one thing that I can say about this verdict today is the relief. It was an immediate, like, as soon as they started saying guilty, 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 I was like, oh, it was like that thing where it was like you were holding your breath up until then. There's certain things that are just tight and then the body just completely relaxed, because you're right. It's been a progression of emotion, a roller coaster, so to speak. And even as I work in my peace and meditate, you can still feel that vibration almost as you're dealing with one thing after another. And it wasn't just about George Floyd's death. And this is why we were talking about Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. We were talking about all of these, the countless amounts of deaths. We're talking about locally here. We have police brutality, and we're still, dealing with the fact that, hey, are these officers going to be, charged, or is this officer, hey, when we see, a sheriff in Tacoma sitting there, calling for his life and then calling 42 cars as somebody delivers papers, it's one case after another. And that's why right now, the way our system is built, it's going to take one case after another to get these guilty verdicts, to really understand the breadth of what is needed right now in terms of really, again, pivoting and changing the trajectory of our nation. We need it. And I think there are more of us in this country, no matter what showcase during, Donald Trump and all of that. I just think there are more of us in this country that really want collectivity, that really want us to be able to be empathetic toward one another, to look toward one another and kind of find ways to bridge the gaps. And maybe we don't agree on everything, but we agree to understand, as you're always saying. We agree to just, hey, oh, it's okay. That's your opinion and that's mine. Doesn't mean I have to hate you, take that up into my heart. So I think that when I think about what we can actually achieve as a nation, it hasn't been done yet. There was no good old days, right? Nation was built on, savagery, taking land from indigenous folks, bringing the African folks over here to enslave them, to cultivate the land, to grow wealth for white families that still have that wealth today. So I think we have a lot of things to atone for. But again, this right here just feels like, oh, okay. This is not one of those things that still is going to need to be atoned for. This is one of those things that said, no, this guy deserves to be guilty.
I'll be honest with you, Trey Holiday. It's crazy that we got to go through all this just to validate that our lives matter, that there's value. Like, all of this, it took all of this. And imagine if it wasn't for the murder of George Floyd, a lot of us wouldn't have Manuel Ellis' name on our lips.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for George Floyd, they still trying to figure that out. When Manuel Ellis down in Tacoma, it's something that is hard to explain to people who haven't gone through it. And, there's sympathy and then there's empathy. And I know a lot of people have the sympathy, but it's very difficult to have the empathy if you haven't gone through it. That you walk through sometimes every day, knowing that people have devalued your worth just by the color of your skin, that you're less important, that your life has less value and importance. I mean, man, it's a year, May 29th, it was when the Seattle protest started. I think May 25th was the day that George Floyd was killed. We're almost 1 year, man. And for a guy that has a lot of words, at the moment, I'm just almost not speechless over the verdict, but I'm speechless at, like, this is what it takes for a whole country to be like, you know what? We got to do better. This is what it takes.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what it takes. And I think we talk about resilience all the time, and how, honestly, so many of us that have dealt with police brutality in our families, dealt with, them pinning guns or drugs on folks and throwing, we've dealt with so much. This case is really a spotlight to so many other things. And you are so right, Omari, in terms of how much it really takes to get the rest of the world to understand it. And that is why this case is so unique in its own right. That, the hope for me is that this is what the nation begins to understand. It's inevitable, it's undeniable that these types of cases exist, and they end up being, the brunt of it all ends up being felt by families that lose loved ones, families that loved ones get incarcerated over trumped up charges. We can talk about the ways that the criminal injustice system has really been working throughout its inception. And so many of experts that we've brought onto the Morning Update show, Sean Good, Sade Smith, Willard Jimerson. There's so many that have come on to talk, Nikita Oliver, just a ton of folks really at the top of my mind that have come on to talk about the wide variety of ways that this system in and of itself has really been built to do exactly what it's been doing. That's why so many people are like, well, how do we reform the system? How do we change the system so that it actually has empathy and humanity at the core of it, so that it does not break people down race by race, so that it does not come with this inherent racial bias that was built into it? I think that there's so many different things that we can look at in terms of ways that it's being reformed and reimagined and rethought right now with multiple communities all over the nation. But this nation in particular has a lot of work to do to right the wrongs. And you know what? Oh, you're absolutely right. It should have never taken this much. The fact that it did is another indicator of the depth of that system. And I for one, can just say that, we have a lot of political action happening right now. We got people running for office, and it's time for people to really embody this lesson right here, that this case should be teaching all of us, that it is important to listen to collective voice, and it is important to understand ways to mitigate these damages that many families have been experiencing throughout the history of policing in this country, that we really do need to talk about that. We need to make sure that it's a big key point. One of the things that Bruce said there was, hey, just looking at the video, maybe it's not enough to have folks look at that video and say, if you don't feel something, then you shouldn't be an officer. At the end of the day, this verdict also kind of expands that. There needs to be a wide range of ways that people understand we're not here to see Black bodies as a threat, but that we're really here to be protective, to serve, to care for our communities. We need to work on building the bridges and building relationships within communities so that the people that we're here to serve really do feel that we are serving them. I think there's a wide variety of things that are being worked on in the outskirts and in the centers of the cities throughout this nation. And that's some of the things that really gives me great hope, because ultimately it can't just be, one case, another case, and we've already seen it. We've been reporting on it all the time. And so right now, I think as a nation, we have a real opportunity to surge ahead with new change, with a renewed sense of self, and shake off a lot of that stuff that's been there. For those of you that are in families that know that racism is rooted deep, that understand your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your grandfather, that they come, or your mother or father, auntie, uncle, whoever, that they come with this racial bias, and you are there as a beacon in your family to showcase to them this wide range of information they have access to now with the internet. You guys can pull up statistics to really try to break down these things. Start having these hard conversations in your families at the dinner table. It doesn't have to result in arguments, but let's start really having these hard conversations. I think it's up to so many that come from these racist families that understand, man, that's just how grandpa is. That's just how uncle is. No, that can no longer persist. At this point, it really is up to you. And that's why I say, see yourself as a part of the solution, because just like those jurors did, they sat there and they endured all of that video. They endured all of that evidence showcasing over and over and over again that Derrick Chauvin was really in the wrong when he had his knee on George Floyd's neck. And really, this country has had its knee on Black folks' neck for all of its inception. So please do your part to really showcase to your family members that carry these racist values with them, that there is an opportunity for them to learn, for them to expand their horizon, their ideals, and really understand the history of this nation and how we can all work together to make it better.
Right. And so right now, we've got a figure that reached out to one of the people who's been in the streets. The murder of George Floyd brought a lot of people to the streets. One of the people from Black Action Coalition, we got Ish. If you can bring Ish in, Nikki. Ish, can you hear me?
Hey, Omar. We
got bad connection.
I can hear you. It's a little staticky on my end.
Yeah, a little staticky on our end too.
What's up, Ish? What's up, brother?
So let me just jump right into it. I don't know how good this connection is here, but as someone who's been out there in the protest from the beginning, and the murder of George Floyd was a catalyst for people to in Seattle to come into the streets. What are you feeling today now with this guilty verdict on all three charges? I think we're gonna get him.
I mean, at the moment, it's a relief, definitely, to know that Derrick Chauvin has been convicted, on all counts. It's definitely a relief. When I was watching it live, I was kind of on standby, kind of nervous, but it was definitely a surprise overall because I was just expecting the usual that we always get, which is the bare minimum from, this system, that's oppressing us. Well, but nice to see him to receive, first degree murder. But, we gotta start somewhere. And this definitely seems like, a step in the right direction, and I'm just hoping that we can continue to apply pressure, to the system to get the genuine change that we all want to see.
Right. And what is this? We'll see if we can try to boost your sound back there. But so what does this verdict mean to groups like yours, Black Action Coalition, and to different protest organizations that have been out there, a lot of them every day? How does this impact anything in regards to what you guys are doing?
It definitely feels like a win, for me and a group I run with, and it should definitely feel like a win that's out there because now that we know, this oppression that we're all facing, especially through the system of policing, it should definitely give officers nationwide, definitely what's the word that I'm looking for? Some type of I'm stuck at the moment. But you should definitely give some officers some type of notice to know that whatever you think that you were doing before, whatever you think that this system is allowing you to get away with, it's not happening like that no more because we do have advocacy groups out here, in multiple cities and states, that actually been doing the thing, but with us out here and with the death of George Floyd, it may have brought us out a lot more on the block consistently. But just us as a group of people, the Black community and everyone else who stands with us in solidarity, we just need to keep in mind that we have to keep that pressure going, and we have to continue to combat the powers that be, so that we can all, truly, live a life, that's peaceful. That's wholesome, that's based on equality, for all. So definitely, to me and my group, this definitely feels like a win, definitely a step in the right direction. And we're not going to let up. We're going to continue to advocate and put on community events, and try to stick together and continue to move forward through all of this.
All right, we're gonna let you go right here. I know we'll probably be talking with you either later on tonight or tomorrow. We just got a bad connection from you, but I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts.
Thanks, Ish, and I agree 100%. Yeah.
One thing that's interesting that a byproduct, so to speak, of the murder of George Floyd and the Seattle protests. And I mean, you've got these different organizations like the Black Action Coalition there with Ish, who we just talked to, who didn't exist before the murder of George Floyd. I mean, there's so many different groups and organizations that are now up and active and engaged in their community. I know one of the things the Black Action Coalition does is they're big right now in like job skill development, mental health, trying to find people housing. And I mean, this is a community group that didn't exist before the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah, it was important. I think a lot of people said, man, I got to do something. And that's what I mean, that, his death, it was a tragedy. But one of the things we have seen, as you just said, a byproduct is that people said, I cannot sit at home and not do something. There was a lot of people who said, I'm going to see myself as a part of the solution, even if that means I'm creating a new organization, connecting with one that did exist. I'm going to get educated. I'm going to educate my peer group, my colleagues, my friends. Like that right there is what I really saw. I feel like the CHOP really brought a lot of that energy there. People were saying, look, we just can't sit inside our homes as we deal with these atrocities just all over our screens with media and showcasing these deaths. I mean, that is one of the things that I think is a byproduct. And you know what? It's a beautiful thing because, again, the more people that we have working on these solutions, the better. It is important that folks have all of the avenues available to them to, again, be a part of the solution. Get out there and get their hands into all of this work because there's plenty of work to be done. And as Ish said there, this is just one thing. He kept saying we have to continue to press. And this is something that you'll hear from many folks who are on the ground. Nikita Oliver also said the same thing. We cannot just deal with one win. When they were talking about, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris coming into the White House, it was like, all right, a lot of folks were celebrating, but we can't yet celebrate. We have to continue to press. Here's another milestone here. All right, a guilty verdict in George Floyd case. Cannot always just focus on that and sit here and celebrate. We have to continue to press. I think that's one of those messages that really resonates with so many who are really involved in this work and in changing the tides of this nation. It just takes all of us. And I agree with Ish 100%. We do have to continue to press.
Right. Just checking this out here. There's a bunch of statements coming out. Don't see it yet here, Nikki. She had loaded something from Governor Inslee. Oh, here it is. My bad. Governors, today is a day for all to recommit themselves to a more perfect union in their communities and our nation. Let this be the beginning of progress rather than the end of one trial. Today's sense of relief for some is fleeting. They know more must be done to prevent this forum from happening again and again. Too many live with this uncertainty. We must end systemic racism. And that's there from Governor Jay Inslee. I think we're going to wrap it up here, Trey Holiday, and we're just connected with everybody. I mean, of course, we had a plan for the morning update show tomorrow. I think that we're going to rearrange that a bit now that this news is out, and where it might be difficult for tonight. We had talked about, this verdict came much faster than, we expected, but we've got a town hall discussion with quite a few people. We had something lined up already called Reporting While Black, talking about this compounded trauma that you encounter reporting on all of this stuff. But what I could tell our viewing audience is stay tuned. We'll update everybody here. But tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., depending on what's happening tonight, I think we're going to go in, Jake, we're going to hit a few spots. So we might go live here later on tonight as well from the field. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., the morning update show, and then we're having our town hall discussion. Any last words before we get out of here, Trey Holiday?
Man, I'm going to continue to say it. I think this is a great time. And just as our governor said there, we have to end systemic racism. And it really does take the hands and minds and brilliance of us all. See yourself as a part of the solution, guys. Get out there and get into it, because we need all of the bodies to come together to make real change.
All right. I guess I could end this the way I ended it on the morning update show. Just a reminder to all of you to go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity, and we'll be in touch with you very soon.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.